The dojo was crowded that evening. Students lined the walls, their eyes wide with excitement as whispers ran through the room. In the center stood a man, tall and sharp-eyed, dressed in the traditional black silk uniform of Wing Chun. His movements were precise, every gesture carrying weight. He was known across the city as Master Leo, a man who trained champions and carried a reputation for never losing a duel. But tonight was different. Tonight all eyes were not on him, but on the guest. Standing quietly at the other end of the room, KeanuReeves, dressed in simple clothes. Keanu did not look like a challenger. He bowed respectfully to everyone in the room, his hands steady, his posture humble. But the presence he carried was undeniable. This was no actor playing a role. This was a man who had spent years training, learning, and respecting martial arts. Not as entertainment, but as discipline and way of life. Yet the crowd did not see humility. They saw a duel about to unfold. The tension was electric. Master Lu's voice cut through the silence. "You are Keanu Reeves, Hollywood star. You play the warrior on screen. But tonight, we see if you are a warrior in truth." Some students chuckled under their breath. Others nodded in agreement. Many thought it would be over quickly. To them, Keanu was an outsider, a man of cameras and scripts, not sweat and steel. But Keanu bowed his head again. "I didn't come to prove I am stronger. I came to honor the art. If you wish to test me, I will not refuse." His words, calm and steady, carried more weight than defiance ever could. The crowd hushed. The duel began with no dramatic signal. Only the subtle shift of weight as Master Liu moved forward, his hands flowing like water, sharp and fast. Keanu matched him with careful defense, each block smooth, each step grounded. There was no anger, no reckless, strikingly focused dot at first. It seemed like Keanu was on the back foot, pushed by the storm of Lu's attacks. But those watching closely noticed something unusual. Keanu was not fighting to win. He was studying, absorbing, reflecting the master's energy back at him. Then came the moment that shocked everyone. Master Lu unleashed a rapid chain of strikes. A barrage meant to overwhelm. The crowd leaned forward, certain this would end it. But Keanu moved with unexpected precision, redirecting the blows, and with one subtle counter, he turned the master's momentum against him. Lu stumbled backward. Caught off guard, gasps erupted through the dough, but Keanu did not advance. He did not strike while his opponent was open. Instead, he stepped back, bowed once more, and lowered his hands. "You are fast. You are powerful," Keanu said softly. "But martial arts is not about breaking others. It is about knowing yourself." For a long moment, the dojo was silent. Students stared, confused. This was not the brutal clash they had come to see. This was something else. Master Liu steadied himself, his eyes narrowing. There was no laughter now, only a flicker of respect. And something deeper, something unsettled. Because in that brief exchange, he realized Keanu was not here to entertain or to pretend. He was here to remind them what true mastery looked like, and the duel was only beginning. The dojo air felt heavy after that first exchange. Students whispered to each other, some in disbelief, others in awe. They had expected Keanu to stumble, to be embarrassed by Master Lu's speed and power. Instead, they saw him redirect an attack that few had ever survived cleanly. Master Lu's face tightened. He was a man who had built his entire reputation on dominance, on never being shaken in front of his students. In front of them was more than a mistake. It was humiliation. He straightened, his voice sharp. "You move well, Reeves. But defense is not mastery. Let us see if you can handle true pressure." He rushed forward again, his hands striking with even greater force, the rhythm faster than before. Every strike was meant to test Keanu's limits, to push him beyond the calm he carried. But Keanu stayed grounded. His feet moved with patience, never hurried. His hands blocked, redirected, guided. It was not flashy. It was not aggressive. It was steady, like stone shaped by flowing water still. The pressure grew. Sweat formed at his brow, lashing strikes. Came close to his chest, his jaw, his ribs. The crowd thought, this is it. He can't hold forever. And then, Keanu did something that no one expected. Instead of resisting every blow, stepped inside one, closing the space between himself and Leo. He gently placed a hand on the master's arm, guiding it aside, and with his other hand, he pushed lightly at Lu's chest. The push was small, controlled, but it sent Lu stumbling back again, his balance broken. The dojo gasped louder. This time, the whispers turned into stunned silence. Master Lu caught himself, his eyes narrowing. His pride burned, but deeper inside, something unsettled stirred. Keanu, breathing calmly, lowered his hands. "I don't want to fight you," he said. "Quietly, you are a teacher. I respect that. I'm only here to honor the art." His humility only sharpened the tension. To some students, his words sounded like mercy. To others, like insult. One younger student couldn't stay silent. "Master, don't let him embarrass you. Show him what true Wing Chun is." Master Liu's jaw clenched. Pride, discipline, and respect wrestled inside him. He had trained for decades, built a reputation of strength, and now, in his own dojo, a man outsiders called an actor stood calmly against him. But Keanu's words lingered. "I don't want to fight you." They were not spoken with arrogance, or spoken with truth. The room waited for Lu's decision. He could end it with humility, acknowledge the lesson, and step away. Or he could push further, seeking to reclaim his pride with force. His choice would define not just this duel, but his legacy. And after a long silence, he took a deep breath and said again. Keanu nodded once, his eyes stayed calm, and the duel resumed. But this time, it was not just a test of strength. It was a test of spirit. The hook hit the room like lightning the moment Master Liu stepped in and snapped a fast chain of punches at Keanu. Everyone thought this was the wave that would drown him, but Keanu shifted one foot a small angle, and his hands moved like doors. Opening and closing, he let the first strikes pass by his center, then he stepped inside the storm and tapped the master's forearm and hip at the same. Timeth tap looked gentle, but the effect was not gentle at all. Master Liu lost his root and slid backward into the wooden dummy at the edge of the mat. The clack of wood against wood echoed around the dojo phones. Came up, hands shook, students gasped. Someone whispered he sent the master flying with a touch canoe. Did not chase, he bowed once. Lowered his hands and took a breath. The air trembled with a new kind of silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence that comes when people see something they did not believe was possible. Master Liu steadied himself, shame and heat burned across his face. He had spent years building a mountain of pride, and in one quiet moment, a man who did not even wear a uniform placed a crack through the rock. He lifted his chin, his voice cold again. You hid behind softness. He said, "Fight me for real, no. More polite steps, no more light pushes. Give me your full strength." Keanu looked at him with clear eyes. "I do not want to harm you, master, but I will meet the level you chooseth." Master surged forward this time, not with show but with intent. His hands cut the air, elbows, sharp shoulders heavy. He aimed for the collarbone, the ribs, the base of the jaw. The students leaned in, some with awe, some with hunger. They wanted to finish. They wanted an Keanu's body read. The rhythm. He raised one hand, and the master's strike met a soft wall that turned to steel at the last inch. The second hand guided the next blow off the line. His feet moved like he was stepping through a slow river. He waited for the moment. The breath changed. The shoulder lifted. Too high, the hip lagged behind, and then he made the move that the room would call brutal, even though it broke nothing. Stepped straight in and placed his palm under the master's chest just above the heart. Not a punch, not a shove, a precise shock that stole balance and breath without leaving a bruise. Master Liu collapsed to one knee, his eyes wide, his lungs searching for air. The crowd froze. Some thought the master had been hit hard. Some thought they had seen a trick, but the truth was simple. The counter struck the center of balance. The body obeyed and sat down. Keanu dropped to one knee. Two. He did not loom, did not smile. He offered his hand. "Master, you are hurt in your right shoulder. Do not hide it. You guard high, because the joint does not trust you. I will not attack that place." Murmurs rippled through the students. A few looked at each other. He saw it. He read. The shoulder, no one ever saw it. Master Liu's jaw tightened. He refused the hand and pushed himself up. He rolled the shoulder, and pain flashed across his face. Yes, there had been an old injury, the kind that never fully leaves a fiatera. Young student stepped out, anger bright in his eyes. He pointed at Keanu. You humiliate our teacher, do not pretend. It is kindness, fight me instead, prove your respect. Keanu shook his head gently. I do not fight students, I protect them the way a teacher should. Words struck deeper than any palm. The young student lowered his arm, uncertain the master's gaze. Flickered pride wrestled with responsibility. The room felt like a pipe ready to burst in. An older woman entered from the back, her steps soft, her hair silver tied in a plain. Not the students straightened at once. Some whispered Grandmother Zun. Master Lu's first teacher. She watched in silence for a long breath, then spoke not to Keanu, but to her former student. Have power, but you lost your ground, she said. You wanted to win in front of them more than you wanted to teach them. You forgot the purpose of the art. The room shrank under her voice. Even the phones lowered. Mr. Lu swallowed the words. Landed hard. He looked at Keanu, and for the first time, there was no anger, only a tired question. Why are you here? Keanu answered. With the truth, a friend asked me to visit. He said your dojo struggles because the rent rose and a promoter has been pushing you to stream. Violent matches for money, he said. You began to say yes, and you did not like the man you were becoming. I came to bow to your art and to remind the room what the art is. You do not need me to defeat you. You need me to stop you from losing yourself. Students turned to their master. Some faces softened, some broke. The older woman closed her eyes as if in prayer. Master Lu's shoulders fell a little, and beneath the pride a wound opened, not the shoulder. The heart looked around at the cameras, at the hungry looks at his own reflection in the trophy case, and he saw a man he did not respect. He took a breath, then another, and spoke quietly to the room. The duel is over. A few students protested. No, master, finish him. Show strength. The older woman cut the noise with a look. Strength is knowing when to stop. She said. Keanu bowed. Thank you for the lesson. Master Lu bowed back slower. This time real, this time. And for a moment peace felt possible. The room had changed. The fight had turned into a mirror, and everyone saw themselves a little more clearly. Then the door swung open, and the promoter himself walked in. A man in a shiny suit with a smile that had no warmth to men flanked him. Arms crossed, he clapped slowly. Well, look at this. The Hollywood monk and the broken teacher. How inspiring. His voice oiled the floor. He waved at the students. Keep your phones up, everyone. Real drama sells better than drills. Master Louis' face paled. He whispered under his breath, I told you not to come here. The promoter chuckled. You do not tell me, I tell you. Your rent is due next week. You streamer reel. Fight, or I take this place and turn it into a boutique. You will keep your belts in a glass case and sell scented candles. Sell students. Stirred shame, anger, fear. The room that had learned quiet began to shake again. The promoter pointed at Keanu. You fight, my man, now. Full contact. We broadcast it tonight. The offer is simple. You win, I lower his rent for a year. You refuse, I raise it tomorrow and call the landlord. While we all watch, a tall fighter stepped from the doorway, his knuckles scarred, his eyes flat. He was not from this school. He was not from any school. He was from the business of pain. The students drifted back, creating a circle. The promoter raised. His phone live icons bloomed on the screen. The trap was set. Keanu looked at Master Leo, then at Grandmother Zun, then at the students. Their fear felt like a small animal curled in the chest. He spoke low so only the nearest could hear. I do not chase violence, but I will not leave you alone with it. If I must stand here, I will stand. With care, Grandmother Zuen nodded. Do what you must, but do not let hate touch your hands. Fighter rolled his shoulders and stepped forward. No bow, no pause. A fast hook came for Keanu's head. Then a heavy low kick aimed at the knee. The kind of kick that ends walking. Keanu moved inside the hook. The knuckles brushed his hair. He dropped weight and caught the kick with a forearm and hip turning. So it slid past and punished the attackers. Balanced, the fighter recovered quick and tried to clinch, to crush ribs and breath in that tight space. Keanu gave the counter that the camera would call brutal. He sealed the hands with one wrist bone, pressed the attacker's elbow with the other, and a short shoulder drop tilted the man's frame. The move looked small, but it took the spine out of the strike. The fighter's face changed. He tried to headbutt out of panic. Keanu placed his palm on the man's forehead and guided it down to the mat. Like pushing away a door, the man fell. Heavy, stunned, but not broken, Keanu stepped back, hands open, no follow-up, no triumph, only spest. Promoter barked, "Get up, finish him!" The fighter lurched forward with a wild, straight punch. All power, no line. Keanu sank and touched the ribs with two fingers. At the exact moment the punch reached extension, a shock of pain seized the attacker's breath. He collapsed to a knee, eyes wide, searching for air. It looked cruel on camera because it was honest. It showed the truth of a body that has rules. And the truth of a technique that obeys those rules. Keanu did not touch him again. He waited. The room went so quiet that the street outside felt loud. The fighter tried once more to rise, then lowered his head and tapped the mat. Not a tournament. Not a contract, just a human signal. Keanu bowed to him. "Thank you for standing here with me." The man blinked in confusion, then nodded a tiny nod. He had been handled and spared. Both truths sat heavy in him. The promoter swore and shoved through the students. He pointed at Master Lu. "This is your fault. You let him embarrass us." The older woman stepped between them, her voice like stone. "You brought shame here. You clean it now. Take your cameras and leave, or stay and learn, but do not threaten." Children against students began to lower their phones. One by one, the circle became a wall not of fists, but of choice. The promoter looked around and saw no audience left to sell to, only people the wrong kind for his business. He hissed, "We are not done." He jerked his chin, and his men followed him out. The door closed like a full stop breath. Returned to the room, Master Lu looked at Keanu. His eyes wet, not from pain, from the thing that comes after truth. He bowed deeper than before. He spoke so all could hear. "I forgot what the art is. I will change this place. If you accept, I ask you to visit again, not to fight, but to guide." Keanu bowed back. "If I come, I will sweep floors and hold pads. Nothing more. The art belongs to you." And to them, he looked at the students, and the students looked back, some smiling, some crying a little. With relief, Grandmother Zun placed a light hand on her former student's shoulder. "Teach them to stand without fear," she said, "and teach them to bow without shame." That is, outside the sky had turned the color of ash. Before rain, Keanu stepped toward the door, then paused. He turned to the fighter, who had come for money. The man stood alone near the wooden dummy. Eyes on the floor, Keanu walked over and offered his hand. The man hesitated, then took it gently, as if it might break Keanu. "Dado said there is a class here tomorrow. You can come as a beginner if you want." The man looked at Master Lu, who nodded yes, and something in his face loosened like a knot being untied as Keanu left the dojo. The street felt softer, the noise not so sharp. His phone buzzed with messages, offers, headlines, but he put it back in his pocket. He walked without hurry. He thought about pride and mercy, about how a move can look brutal and still be an act of care. How stopping 1 inch short can be the kindest strike in the world. Did not know that the promoter was already planning a larger stage, a bigger trap with brighter lights. He did not know that the next invitation would not be a duel, but a public trial of his character. Streamed to millions, he only knew the simple rule that had saved him again and again. Do not let hate touch your hands. And far behind him, in the dojo, a broom began to move across the floor, slow, steady, each stroke clearing a little more space for the kind of strength that makes people better. Not smaller. Rain slicked the streets outside the dojo that night, but Keanu walked slowly under it, his jacket damp, his mind quiet. The duel was over. The students were safe, and Master Lu had bowed with humility. It should have ended there, yet somewhere deep inside, he knew it hadn't. Men like that promoter never accepted defeat. They only searched for a bigger stage. The next morning proved him right. Headlines screamed across the internet. Keanu Reeves faces Wing Chun master in shocking duel. Videos were everywhere, edited to highlight the moments that looked the most dramatic. One clip in particular showed the brutal counter, the palm strike that dropped the hired fighter to his knees. Taken out of context, it looked merciless. Comments flooded in. Some praised Keanu's skill, calling him a true martial artist. Others mocked him, claiming it was staged, or worse, that he had humiliated a respected master for attention. And then came the promoter's move. He announced a massive public exhibition, a charity martial arts showcase. where Keanu Reeves would prove his honor by facing a lineup of fighters from different schools. It would be broadcast live, streamed to millions. The promoter promised the money would go to struggling dojos, but everyone who knew him could hear the lie behind the words. That evening, Master Lu visited Keanu. His face carried both shame and urgency. "You must not go," he said firmly. "This is a trap. He will use you for profit, and if you refuse, he will turn the world against you." Keanu listened quietly. "Then what do you suggest? If I don't go," he says, "I fear the challenge. If I do," he twists it for money. Liu lowered his gaze. "I failed to stop him before, but if you go, you must go with a purpose, not to win, to teach." Keanu nodded slowly. "That has always been the purpose." The day of the showcase arrived. The arena was packed, lights glaring down, cameras circling like vultures. Banners read "Masters of Discipline," but the air smelled only of spectacle. The promoter stood at center stage, his grin wide, his voice booming. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you witness truth. Tonight, Hollywood faces real martial arts." Keanu walked in quietly, bowing to the crowd, not playing to them. Ready, the audience felt the contrast. One man shouted, "Teach him humility." Another called, "Keanu, we love you." The room was split, torn between sport and spectacle. The first challenger entered, a tall Sanda fighter known for his explosive kicks. The promoter leaned into the microphone. "Remember full contact? No mercy?" The bell rang. The fighter came fast, spinning kick cutting the air. Keanu stepped back, absorbing the rhythm. The crowd leaned forward. Would he fight to crush or to control? When the kick came again, Keanu stepped in, catching the leg with his forearm and hip. He guided it past, and instead of striking, he set his palm on the man's chest and gently pushed him back into balance. The crowd murmured. It wasn't the brutal clash they expected. The fighter looked stunned, then bowed. Recognizing the respect, the second challenger entered, a grappler with thick arms and a low stance. He lunged, trying to throw Keanu to the mat. Keanu let the momentum carry, shifting his weight, guiding the man over his own shoulder. The grappler landed safely, unharmed, and Keanu immediately offered a hand to pull him up. The audience gasped. Again, no humiliation, no violence, only control without cruelty. One by one, the fighters came, cued, each testing him with their art, and each time Keanu answered not with destruction but with restraint. The crowd began to change. At first they had wanted blood. They watched in awe as humility outshone aggression. But the promoter grew restless. His plan was slipping. He whispered to his men. At the final round, he would send in someone who didn't follow rules, someone who wouldn't stop until Keanu was broken. Keanu could sense it. The calm before the storm. And when the last fighter walked in, the crowd fell silent. He wasn't dressed in traditional gear. He wasn't bowing. His fists were taped, his face hardened with scars. This wasn't a martial artist. This was a street fighter, a man who carried violence like a second skin. The promoter's grin returned. Ladies and gentlemen, the final test. Let's see if kindness survives brutality. The bell rang. The man charged, and Keanu knew the real trial had begun. The street fighter charged like a bull, his fists cutting the air with raw fury. This was not a duel of discipline or honor. It was chaos dressed as combat. The crowd erupted in shouts, some thrilled, others horrified. Keanu shifted his weight, letting the first blow slice past his jaw by inches. The second came low, aiming for his ribs, but Keanu turned, letting the strike scrape against his hip instead of landing clean. The man fought to break, not to test. Every punch was heavy. Every kick reckless, meant to end the fight quickly and brutally. The promoter's eyes glittered with satisfaction. This was what he wanted. Blood, spectacle, humiliation. But Keanu moved with calm patience. His body read the rhythm. His breath stayed steady, blocked, redirected, absorbed, never retaliating with full force. The crowd murmured, why wasn't? He's striking back. A woman in the front row shouted, Defend yourself, Keanu? A man echoed, Hit him back. But Keanu's eyes stayed focused. Finally, Street Fighter snarled and lunged in close, wrapping his arms around Keanu's waist. Trying to slam him into the mat, Keanu sank his stance, his legs like rooted stone. Then, with one smooth motion, he shifted his hips, guiding the man's weight forward and sending him stumbling past. Instead of finishing him with a strike, Keanu stepped back, palms open. "You don't have to fight like this," he said softly. "Loud enough for the cameras to catch? Your strength doesn't need to be destruction." The fighter's face twisted in confusion. No one had ever spoken to him that way in a match. His anger flared hotter. He roared and swung wildly, fists crashing down like hammers. Keanu ducked, pivoted, and placed his palm on the man's chest again. This time he pressed with more force, sending him staggering into the ropes. The audience gasped. It looked brutal. But in truth, it was precise control. The promoter shouted, "Finish him!" His voice cut through the arena. "Show the world you're more than an actor." But Keanu shook his head. "I didn't come here to destroy anyone. I came to honor the art." The crowd fell silent. The fighter, panting and red-faced, glared at him. Then something shifted. His fists lowered. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. He looked at Keanu, then at the roaring crowd. And the first time he saw what everyone else saw us, wasn't a battle of fists. It was a battle of spirit. The fighter dropped to one knee, not out of pain, but out of surrender. The arena erupted in thunderous applause. People stood, clapping, shouting his name. Not because he had crushed his opponent, but because he had refused to give in to cruelty. The promoter's face turned pale. His plan had backfired. The cameras had captured not humiliation, but hope. Keanu bowed to the fighter, then to the crowd. "Strength is not in how hard we strike," he said, his voice steady. "It's in how we choose not to strike when the world demands it." The words rippled through the arena, through the cameras, through millions watching at home, and while the crowd celebrated, the promoter slipped out quietly, rage boiling in his veins. He had lost control of the story again. But he wasn't done. In the shadows of the arena, he was already plotting something darker, something that would not just test Keanu's skills in combat, but his very soul. The storm was not over. It was only gathering strength. The arena still echoed with applause, long after the street fighter bowed his head in surrender. Keanu left the mat quietly, not raising his arms, not seeking glory. To him, the duel was not about victory. It was about reminding everyone what martial arts truly meant: discipline, respect, and kindness, even when facing brutality. But behind the curtains, the promoter fumed. His voice hissed into a phone, his words sharp. "He humiliated me again. Fine. If I can't break him with fists, I'll break him with lies." The next morning, the headlines split into two storms. One wave praised Keanu as a hero of restraint. The other, fueled by the promoter's money, painted him as manipulative, accusing him of staging the fights, of humiliating traditional masters for fame. Keanu read the articles in silence. Anger never touched his face. Instead, he thought about Master Lu, Grandmother Zun, and the students who had seen the truth with their own eyes. He knew lies could spread fast, but he also knew truth had a way of living longer. Then came an unexpected call. The street fighter from the final round asked to meet him. They met in the same dojo where it all began. The man looked different now, calmer, humbled. "No one ever showed me mercy before," he admitted. "You could have broken me that night. But you didn't? Why?" Keanu smiled gently. "Because breaking someone is easy. Helping them rise again is harder, but it matters more." The man lowered his gaze, his voice soft. "Then let me rise. Teach me." From that day, he began training alongside Master Lu's students. Others followed. Slowly, the dojo filled not with pride or fear, but with purpose. The place the promoter wanted to turn into a circus became a sanctuary instead. And as for the promoter, his empire of spectacle began to collapse. The videos people shared were not the edited lies, but the raw clips of Keanu guiding opponents gently, offering hands instead of fists, bowing instead of boasting. Sponsors withdrew from the promoter's shows. The world had seen enough of cruelty. disguised as entertainment. Weeks later, Grandmother Zun gathered the students, Keanu and Master Liu. Her voice was calm but strong. Fighting can stir hearts, but it is kindness that changes them. You all saw it. You all felt it. Now carry it with you. Keanu bowed, his heart steady. For him, the journey wasn't about proving strength, but about protecting the meaning of the art he loved. That night, walking alone under the streetlights, he reflected on everything: the strikes, the silence, the applause, the lies. He realized the truth he had carried all along. People may try to test you with pride, anger, or violence, but the greatest counter is not force. It is restraint, compassion, and the choice to let kindness guide your hands. The world would remember the brutal counter that shocked the crowd. But those who looked deeper would remember something else: how a man refused to be dragged into cruelty, even when the world demanded it, and that was the real victory.